I got you.
Right on. Jessica, what's up?
We're back.
Yo,
Hey,
Dean,
dude.
Jukka.
Hey.
What's up, man? How you doing? All right. This is pretty cool. We got almost 5 different nationalities. It's insane.
I want my pillow.
Yeah. So,
Scared.
we're going to talk about startup ecosystems and how stuff is not boring. So, the way we're going to do this is very simple. Short questions, short answers. We're not going to do any presentations, no slides, and so forth. But quick intros. What do you do?
My name is Shan, and then we build startup communities in China by organizing events.
Cool. What do you do?
So I'm Jessica, and I'm CEO and co-founder of the startup hub Stuff46, and we offer a member-based community for Sweden's next startup stars.
Nice. And what do you do?
I'm Dean Debiase. You've all seen me before. Dancing with Startups. Can I hear it? Come on.
Yeah, come on. Buzz a little bit. Yeah, they're getting there. And your turn?
Yeah, well, you saw me just, I'm a Jukka-Pekka teaching business in Pyongyang.
All right. So I promised Jukka-Pekka I'm not going to get him killed. So when he goes back to North Korea, he can still be alive. But so maybe backstage chats we can have something about their dear leader. Anyway, so how do you do whatever you do in China?
How do I do that? We have many passionate young people, and they are helping us to build communities across China. We're now in 35 cities around the globe. And then we have, we're doing events, and we now have over 15,000 event attendees.
So basically you got Slush already.
Similar to Slush.
Right.
I'm hoping that.
Awesome. Okay. And Jessica, what do you do actually, and how does it impact your community?
So what we're doing is like we try our best to support startups, so connect startups with each other, with investors, with corporates. I mean, everything is about like networking and support startups to grow faster.
Okay. Dean?
1871 in Chicago. It's a little unique. Our average age is actually 30s and 40s. It's not just startup kids.
Okay.
One of the things we do is we focus on B2B, and we also, when somebody comes in and says, hey, I've got a great idea, it's a cupcake delivery service, we say, you know what, we don't need another delivery service. So we try to kind of guide them into categories if they don't know.
Okay.
And we put entrepreneurs together a lot.
All right. And Jukka?
Well, piloting first steps of certain type of business education, also other courses than startups.
So what kind of typical startups do we have in North Korea? And first of all, how accessible can they have, how much access do they have to the internet? Because this doesn't apply so much to Europe, but North Korea is quite rare to have access to internet, right?
Yeah. So in the university, staff and graduate students have.
Okay. So what kind of typical, what would be like one startup that a lot of people want to do in there? What kind of startups are they?
One NGO trained successfully is it's a kind of supermarket, basically 7-Eleven, which is a chain that is operated 24 hours and offers more better quality products.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about you, man? What kind of typical startups do you have in China?
It depends, because China is quite large, and then we see many hardware startups, and also we see many. Right now, the hottest topic is mobile payment.
Can you name one or two superheroes that we have over there?
One or two superheroes.
Like superstars, like real amazing, like Supercells and Robios
Okay,
of China.
if you talk about the hardware, the drones, it's DJI.
Can you repeat that?
DJI.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's based in Shenzhen, and then besides DJI, we have Tencent, we have Huawei.
Well,
they're all
Huawei's
based
not
in
a startup
Shenzhen.
anymore. I mean, that's not fair. Jessica, how about you? What's your?
It was once.
Yeah, well, it was, I
exactly.
guess. But how about you? What's like a typical startup heroes you have over there? Can you name a few?
Yeah, so I mean, at Stuff46, we're focusing on digital startups. We see a growing trend now of fintech companies in
Right.
Stockholm, I would say. And we have, of course, a lot of like success stories from Sweden. Spotify, Skype, Klarna, and so on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great inspiration for the next generation.
Dean, you were talking about before about how Chicago is kind of different to other regions of the United States. But what is a typical startup that in Chicago flourishes, and what is a typical startup that dies?
So it's a mixture of consumer and B2B. 1871 focuses a lot on B2B. Grubhub was founded there, had a good nurturing ecosystem that helped it survive and acquire other companies and get public and all that stuff. The other one I mentioned is Okta, which we just sold to Salesforce. The ones that don't make it usually get helped out a lot. That civic ecosystem really helps, or we'll combine them with something else. So it's probably a more nurturing environment than maybe a New York or something, just to stir it up.
Okay. Hey, Jukka, so it's really interesting for us. I think it's the first time ever we have a North Korean representative, although you're local from Finland. What would be like, what kind of a money can they raise over there in North Korea? And do they do any raising,
Well,
do they funding?
Like I said in my presentation, is that it is the fairly early steps.
Right.
So we are creating them to be storage, and once the time is right, 5 to 10 years, then let's
Do they look to go to China, usually?
No, but many Chinese companies are coming now currently to Korea.
And you said before that you're organizing, you want to organize an event in there.
In the future, yeah.
Okay, so if you guys are interested in the North Korean market, Jukka is the guy who can pull up and talk with him a little bit.
Can I add something to his?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's really compelling what he's doing in North Korea. So he's using students to kind of start things and build things, and it's very similar to what we do at Kellogg at Northwestern in Chicago. So we use student teams to help companies come up with new products and services and ventures. How do you find the North Korean student to? Are they creative?
Very good question.
Are they
Thank
startup thinking?
Thank you. Thanks. That's a good question. When I compare, like I've taught quite a lot of in Finland, is they are extremely motivated, very hardworking, and at the same time, it's, for example, for entrepreneurship, it was in the beginning it was difficult to understand, but once we got going, they were immediately on it.
First, you have to spell it. That's the hard part.
Yeah, and define the concept, and then it got. But they take studying very seriously. So if I give a task, they might not sleep, and the competition is so fierce, which is like quite amazing.
Hey, Jessica, what is? We know that in Scandinavia, I mean Nordics, we got Norway, who is a little dormant right now in startup culture. We got Finland, obviously, with Slush is raising a lot, and Denmark is obviously going in there. What makes Sweden turn up so many amazing startups, and how does it work over there?
Oh, I think it's a combination of success stories. I mean, one is like the success stories from like Spotify and so on for the next generation. It's dark much time of the year, so I mean, you sit a lot inside and working with your computer. It's a great educational system and also like the social infrastructure. So I think it's a combination, and also really important. But I mean, it's the same in Finland and so on. I mean, it's a small market, so you have to think global from start.
Shan, what do you think? It's kind of opposite for you. You got a few million or billion people over there.
Exactly.
Nice market.
Right, like in China, there is a saying: there's Chinese market, and there's rest of the world market, outside China market. And we have 1.4 billion populations. And then a couple of days ago, I read an article saying that there are, 750 smartphone users in China. And over half of them are using mobile payments. Like they use cell phones to pay their gas, they use cell phone to buy cigarettes. This happens a lot. Nowadays, I don't need to bring my wallets anymore. So a lot of startups are in these areas.
Dean, how do you measure success in Chicago?
Well, I wish it was darker in Chicago because I didn't know that was the key to productivity. I love that. And I love the other comment you made, which was, our market's not big enough, so we need to think more globally from the start. And I really encourage people to do that. We measure it a few ways. Our mayor measures it in terms of how many jobs has the ecosystem created, and it's tens of thousands. How much money has been raised, and how many VCs are either co-located where we are or they're not flying over. There's a reason they call it Midway Airport. It's the midway of the country. They used to stop there. Now with long-haul jets, the joke is most VCs would just go right to New York. So getting more commercial-grade funding is another barometer. Exits is typically the barometer that people want to talk about, but I really care about revenue growth and scale and how companies are actually approaching the market. And are they selling outside of the United States? I love that as a barometer.
Right. And do you have like one more follow-up question is that what is a typical exit in there? Do they sell fast or do they wait? And
it's a very patient market with Okta. We were probably 4 to 5 years into it before Salesforce bought it. With Grubhub, who actually kind of moved quickly to buy something that was year and a half. With others, there's one storage company that just sold to IBM. It was a long haul. It was almost 8, 9, 10 years. So it's a very patient market, but sometimes you got to balance patience with are you in the right market? So you don't want to wait too long. You got to make sure you're in the right market, right time, right valuation. So.
Jessica, you were talking about backstage something that really is cool about what you do in Stockholm. Tell me like two things. What is your community great at, and what they're not great at?
The Sub 46 community, or like the whole...
Your community, where you're in Stockholm, especially in Sub 46.
So I mean, what we are great at now, I think, is to support each other. I mean, really like, if I help you, you will help me. And that's really, really good. What we can be better at, I mean, it's like scale faster, be out there. Yeah. You can't wait because the competition worldwide is like crazy. So you can't wait too long to go global.
And Jukka, is there like a typical startup that they look up to when they're in North Korea? Do they ever talk about the typical Spotify's, Truecallers, and Rovios? Do they ever look up to someone?
Actually, gaming companies, yeah. They're very familiar with Angry Birds, for example.
Okay.
And Rovio candy is sold at the markets.
I'm sure Peter Westerback is hallucinating somewhere. He's probably jumping from joy.
Yeah.
Is there like, do they know what's going on in Europe? Do they get?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah?
Like I told in the presentation, I saw the Startup Kids documentary in the classroom, which tells how European and US some of the startups were born.
And how about in China? Do they know the concept of unicorns, or is it just like an annoying little animal, or is it actual like a real thing in there?
Unicorn. It's
Magical.
Yeah. And then we heard many unicorn clubs in China, and then many investors made investment into startups, and hoping they can become unicorns. One of my friend, he started his company a year and a half ago. 6 months later, his applications went online. And then within the next 3 months, he has about 65 million installation.
Say what?
65 million installation.
Wow.
65
Billion, with a B.
Million.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not possible.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's how it changed so fast in China.
And he started his company for 1.5 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
Jesus.
But I love your question about what we're not good at.
Yeah.
I mean, when I moved back from Silicon Valley to Chicago, it was just after the 2001 deflation, I call it, correction, if you will, not a dot-com bubble. And the Midwest was very anti-digital, anti-everything. They were actually almost anti-entrepreneurship at some levels. And now the pendulum has swung the other way, which is great. One of the things I've noticed traveling around the world is some cultures and cities, they have a hard time actually admitting, hey, these are some failed companies, and here's what we've learned about it. In Silicon Valley, we would do that all the time. And I would hire you because you were a failed CEO. Whereas in other cities, it's not so much. It's too conservative, and it's hard to get through that. I think coming to grips with that helps people kind of grow, and I think that's a trend that we're seeing more of.
So, Jessica, I know that personally, I know that the Swedish government is quite involved at this point in what startups are doing. But how was it like 4 or 5 years ago? Maybe we can measure that. Where's the government? How was it involved? Did they even know what startups were?
No, I don't think so. And I mean, some politicians, they don't know that either now. So I mean, but I think we have educated them pretty good now, I would say. So I mean, they listen a lot more. I mean, before summer, we launched the Swedish Startup Manifesto, like really focusing how could you support startups in a better way in Sweden. And they listen a lot now, so I'm really positive.
Dean was mentioning before about IKEA, or IKEA for everyone who's not from Scandinavia. Are they involved? Are these big corporations involved at all in startups?
They started to be more and more involved.
Right.
I would say if I compare with just 1 year ago, it's a big difference. So finally they come.
Yeah. In China, because there are giants, and then there's Chinese types of corporations.
There are always giants. This morning I listened to the opening ceremony, and then this gentleman was saying that right now the 20 largest technology company, 14 of them are US based, and then the 6 of them are Chinese-based.
Right.
So these are giants. And for example, there's Alibaba, Tencent. Right now, Xiaomi is also a giant. Xiaomi just started 3 years ago. Can you imagine that?
3 years ago.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes.
And how about if there's some people here who want to enter the Chinese market, then how would they do that? First of all,
I have many friends. They're from France. They're from Germany. They started their companies in China. The first thing they did was is to find the partners, find local partners.
always a local partner.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the second thing that they do might be they have to understand what their users are. Because if you are Europeans, you would understand what Chinese wants. So that's very important. You need to localize your products. Yes.
And about North Korea, is there any way we could see an office of one day maybe office of Rovio in there or something like that? Is there anything that we could see that we could
for
come
sure.
over there?
For sure, we already see DHL office there.
DHL is not a startup, but
No,
it's
but
kind of like a,
that we see big companies maybe coming, I don't know, 10 years, and then you will see the startup.
Hey, we heard recently. If I'm not allowed to ask this, just tell me, and I won't care anyway. But just tell me, like,
Thanks.
what is the kind of? There was this big building that was constructed. It was a science park or something
Yep.
massive,
Yep.
and maybe not necessary. What was it? And just tell me a little bit more about it.
It's called Science Street. It was actually opened 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So it has at least two buildings and more for professors. So usually professors live nearby universities, and now these are the new buildings. Basically, that's it. Yeah.
So they made buildings for professors.
Yep.
They're not called apartments, or
Yeah. Apartments for professors, like huge.
I'm referring to a scientific park that they just made. This huge scientific building.
Yeah.
This is the same one.
No, it's close by.
Right. Okay. So in terms of China, like there's a lot of restrictions that we're seeing is happening in major corporations, small startups. How much is government involved in restricting their business in China?
We're talking about startup right here, right? I don't want to talk about the large corporations, but right now the Chinese government, since the prime minister create a vocabulary, it's called mass entrepreneurship, and then after the vocabulary comes out to the world, and then the government provides 6.5 billion government grants to support startups. For example, if I go to China, if I register my companies in China, in one city, I might get 500,000 RMB for starting funds.
Wow.
Euros.
Just because, yes, no, RMB.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yes.
That, how much is that in euros? Because we're in Euro country.
It's 1 to 8,
Okay.
I guess.
That's quite a lot still. Like,
Yes,
what's
yeah.
actually the process of starting a company in China? Let's go China, Sweden, Chicago, and then North Korea.
It used to be very complicated. It used to take you 1 month or 2 months for the registration. But now, in many cities, it changed a lot. For example, where I come from, Shenzhen, you can get your business license in 3 days.
Oh,
And
cool.
then all the application is online. You don't need to do any paperwork. So that's changing in China.
And in what time frame did that change? How long did that take?
3 years,
Okay.
in the last 3 years.
Jessica?
I mean, it's super easy to start a company in Sweden. If you can't fix that, then I don't think you should run a company. But I mean, of course, I think we need more funding from the government.
Right.
So that's one part that can be better.
Your prince was here earlier. I don't know if you met him.
Yeah. I hugged him 3 times.
Yeah? Does he care?
He cares a lot.
Hey, is it Slush? That's a start.
But they, it's another thing. But they actually care. That's the meaning of it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say a lot of people care.
All right.
But I mean, it's also like go to action.
Like when we're talking about government supports, I think government funding is not that important. I think to eliminate the restriction is more important.
They're right on.
Yes.
Because first of all, when Slush started, the government didn't know, and recently they obviously started caring. So just like it's not always needed, but I was thinking the countries that are so massive they have some funds, maybe they need to inject some
Yes.
initial ones.
Yes.
Dean, in Europe?
I mean, you bring up a good point. There's certain countries, you can go online and find this, that are rated about how quickly you can start a company. So in the United States, it varies on state, county, city, whoever you got to, pay off in some cases, right? But there's certain countries where it's like 400 days. I can't remember the one in South America.
Spain.
Whereas, in the United States, you can do it rather quickly now. It depends on where you live. So the issue is it's almost too easy to start a company right now. And people kind of jump right into it and then figure, okay, now what are we going to do? Should we do the cupcake delivery business or should we do the furniture thing? And it's so easy compared to like the early internet days when we had to like build the infrastructure, get the servers, do all this stuff that no one knows how to do anymore. At least the entrepreneurs, they don't have to go through that. So it's never been easier. So the selection criteria is really important. Being able to actually file some paperwork quickly is important. And then it's back to what we talked about before, that supportive ecosystems. Like, are you in the right place at the right time? That's why Stan, he moved from Russia to Chicago. But if you go anywhere in the United States now, it's easy to start a company, and there's an ecosystem there to support you, which is great. To the point where some people don't go to Silicon Valley. It's too much going on. And you mentioned unicorns. Just with all the buzz and excitement, there might be 100 startups there that would never get noticed. But in Boulder, they're a big deal.
Yeah, I heard about Boulder. Hey, Jukka, how long does it take to start a company in North Korea?
Well, it obviously depends on many factors, but I would say 2 ways now is there are 19 special economic zones, one of which is called Rajin, and very popular with the Chinese companies. Yeah. And so that's one, and the other way is international joint ventures.
But how long does it take to start a company?
I don't know.
Too long.
You have to try.
So just before we wrap up, what kind of startups do we need in China?
What kind of startups?
Yeah,
do we
what kind of
need?
startups do we need there?
I love the word impact, because I keep hearing this word from this morning to right now. I think impact is very important.
Okay, but
Yes.
what kind? We need gaming, we need food deliveries, do we need something to save his lives?
Those helping to change the environment.
Okay, cool.
Protect the environment.
Jessica?
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, more global game changers.
Nice. Dean?
So consumer products and consumer services are kind of overserved right now. The categories I encourage people are B2B and even government services. Those are the two that the internet is slowly getting to. Tons of money to make there.
Jukka?
Helping the living at the countryside, energy solutions and housing, energy.
Awesome. And that's us. Thanks very much for your time.
Huge.